Apologies for the technical difficulties there. We had a network drop, but we are ready to go racing for 90 minutes in the Eifel region. Looks like Chris Crossman has got on pole position, and alongside him will be Clifford Roberts in the 96 Audi. Then it's Haley and Kakos, that is in the 24 Audi and the 13 Lamborghini. Then it is Hartnell and Hedges in the 168 Ferrari and the 88 Audi, followed by Hinden and Walker in the 40 and the 99, with Novakovic in the 357 Ferrari, Markinson Pilkington in the 626 will start on 11th position ahead of Chris Pinchbeck. We've got Proudly in 13th place in the 52 Porsche, the second highest 911 up the grid. And it's DeBar, Utley, Riley, Mitchell, Smith, Vidago, Wardell, AK, Neutelings, De Luca and Santoro. That is the top 24 drivers. So it will be down to both Crossman and Clifford Roberts that will be setting the initial pace. And as you can see on the left-hand side of your screens, we've got Isalovic, Tempera, Wiggin, Diaz, Raddenberry, Wolf, Kirkland, Tamkin, Bowman, Des and Parker. That's the top 35 completed. And that's Dan Parker in one of the Lost Jaguar racing cars. So we've only got 37 drivers, so Martins and Pixley are on the grid. So 37 GT3 cars here at the Nurburgring, ready for the first of 10 rounds of the Simsport Racing ACC Season 3 here in the Eifel region. 3.2 miles, 5.148 kilometers. It's hosted such great championships such as the DTM, the ADAC GT Masters, both the German and the European Grand Prix, amongst all others. The circuit has been in operation since 2012 in its current variation. So 2 mandatory pit stops for the drivers. There is an open pit window, and the drivers must change their tyres on both mandatory stops. So this is where the strategy is really going to come into play. Local time around 1:30 p.m. according to our time up at the top centre of your display. There is Chris Crossman, the number 3 Porsche from EBM. So there's an 87% chance that the race will be dry, 11% chance of light rain with a 2% chance of heavy rain here in the Eifel regions. So Crossman's and Clifford Roberts will be the two setting the pace as they now head to the Coca-Cola curve. Everyone will have to get into 2x2 side-by-side rolling start formation ahead of the run down to the Haughaken for the first time. And once everything is underway, they are at the relevant speed. The rolling start before the lights go from red to green here, and they go green, we go lights. Are into green, as that's a great tow for Clifford Roberts down the hill, as that's the 357 Ferrari, and that is of Novakovic, and he's gone off the track into the barriers, and there's been multiple cars involved, so there's yellow flags at the Haughaken for the first corner, and that's on the very first lap. There's a nice move up the inside there. That is probably centered on Hedges, I believe, for P6. So they now make their way out of the Mercedes arena. Let's have a look at the replay. Because there's Novakovic. There's an Aston to his left, and the pair tangle. And the other Aston gets collected after being spun round. Already drama in the first corner here at the Nurburgring. So drive through already for Chris Pitchbeck in the number 43, and that is in the Apex Racing Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage GT3, as the gap now between Clifford Roberts, who's got the lead off of Crossman, so the Audi in the 96 now getting away. So Clifford Roberts running under the editor's team, and he's running in the Team WRT livery. teammate with Dave Hedges in the 88 Audi. So at the moment, with just around a minute and a half of this race completed. So for those wondering on your screens at home, we now go to Dean Riley from Tempesta Racing in the number 2 Ferrari 488. Just behind Chris Binchbeck in the number 43 Aston, which has got to serve a drive-through. They'll have 3 laps to do it, otherwise there's an automatic penalty as a result of that. So green flag racing all the way as we now complete the very first lap, which was filled with drama on the very first time into the Halkaken. At the moment it's Clifford Roberts from Crossman. As at the minute, Pinchbeck is looking towards the outside of De Bar in the 20, who is the highest placed AM driver. Those wondering about the colour codes for the numbers on the left-hand side of the screen. Whites are for Pro, greys are for Silver, and the red is the AM drivers. So Clifford Roberts now has a lead of over 8.5 tenths of a second on Crossman. Kakos in the Soul Lamborghini. Let's have a look at the replay here. Oh, a bit more contretemps. That was one of the Nissans with a Lamborghini there. Going down the main straightaway. So 3 minutes completed of the 90-minute race here. We'll quickly run through the top 20 as it happens. Feel quite literally compacted significantly. Clifford Roberts leads by over 1.1 seconds from Crossman in the 3 Porsche. Then it's the 13 Lamborghini of Kakos, ahead of Haley and Hedges in the 24 and the 88 Audis respectively. Hartnell in the 168 Ferrari. In 6th ahead of Walker, De Bar, Pinchbeck, Riley, Smith, Wardell, Mitchell, Novakovic, who had that first turn skirmish, Hidalgo, Di Luca, Neuterlings. I'm going to get Mark's name right at some point, I would imagine. I need to have a chat with him afterwards. He's running the Bentley 666 ahead of Santoro, Proudly and DS. So Pinchbeck now serving his drive-through penalty, and that will drop him outside of the top 10. There's the number 66 of Kirkland. That's Neil Kirkland from the Team Terror Racing, running the GT Sport Motul Team RJN colours. Team RJN have run with Nissan for quite a few years, and they are also running with Team RJN in GTs, and James Baldwin has recently been behind the wheel of one of them. Drive-through for number 43, that was Chris Pinchbeck, has been cleared. So there can be a manual override. Kirkland running out the top 25 at the moment, as he's got Martin Pilkington up there. That's Aaron Martin Pilkington ahead in the 626 Aston Martin. So already the field is looking quite compact in this early foray. The strategy will really come into it as the race evolves. The tyres rubbers in. Oh, one of the Bentleys has gone off. Now, who was that? That might have been Utley in the 14 that I think has just gone off and has hit the barriers nose end in. So not a good run there for Utley. And yep, 37 out of the 42 drivers that were put down on the entry list to compete here at the Nurburgring. So that's Gavin Utley, running in the Bentley Continental GT3 from 2018. Let's have a look at the replay here. This is the said McLaren I was just talking about, and there's been a bump from behind. That was Ian Tamkin, sorry, my apologies there. So he's dropped down the order. 666 Bentley of Mark Neuterlings, very different livery to what I've seen him compete in before. Running in 16th place under the Team Parker Racing colours. One driver that I know of that has been racing in the Bentley Continental GT3 not, well, quite recently, Scott Mulvern. So followed his career with quite a lot of interest over the past few seasons when he was running in Formula Ford and won with a significantly older car than some of the other competitors. Here's Jeffrey Wolf in the Car Guy Racing 488 GT3, running in 22nd. There's a Porsche to the side of the road there. Didn't really quite catch out the number as they passed through. Now they're into Valvoline and then Ford Curve before the run down to Dunlop. That is an Aston Martin behind. That is Hindon, the number 40. So Steve Hindon under the Apex Racing banner. Let's have a look at the replay here. Well, that's the number 14. And, right, he's tried to rejoin. So Utley's tried to rejoin and then has been nerfed off, trying to rejoin the track. And I'm not too sure whether it's a racing incident. I'm sure that might be investigated and we'll get respective decision on that very, very shortly. Nice little battle here, and that is with the number 135, and that is Gianluca Di Luca, running in the R Motorsport colours, and he's under the rollover Squadra Corse name. And just behind, he's got Wright Motorsports' Harry Wardell in the Porsche number 8. There's Stephen Haley in the Audi team Hito Tsuyama colours. They normally run in Super GT in the GT300 class. He's currently running P3, and he's not that far behind Chris Crossman in the number 3 Porsche, who took pole position opening round just a few moments ago. So the Audi looking very, very well settled here, especially with the fact that Audi has won the 24 hours of the Nurburgring in past years, not in the current variation, but obviously the Generation 1. This is Aaron Martin Pilkington, currently running 19th in the 626 Aston Martin. And he is from Team Fordzilla, but he's running under the Oman Racing with TF Sport colours. Some that I normally see Johnny Adam run in. And he's trying to close on Diaz and Tepera in the Mercedes 26 and the 98 BMW respectively, who are battling over 17th position. It's about 1.8 seconds off of the 98 BMW at the minute. He's now going to go through towards the Advan curve and then towards the NGK chicane. Taking as much curb as he can without having to compromise his run out of the chicane itself through into the Coca-Cola curve. So taking a tight apex, running as far wide as you dare without exceeding track limits, and trying not to use some of the runoff, because that can unsettle some of the car, or the rear end of the car. So for those wondering on the left-hand side of your screen that you've got the 2 in the amber column, that is the amount of mandatory pit stops that drivers will have to take, as that's a bit of grass tracking there through turn 2. There's Dave Hedges in the very brightly coloured Audi Sport Team WRT livery there in the 88. He's running in the editor's squad with Archie Clifford Roberts. So Dave Hedges running P5 at the moment, and he's being closed in by Hartnell in the 168 Ferrari. Just got the Sky livery on there. And there was an Audi, I think a little bit just out of shot there. That might have been Walker, I believe, in the... So there's Regan Mitchell running in the Team Black Falcon livery on the Mercedes-AMG GT3. Obviously, Team Black Falcon have made some big announcement about their GT3 plans, having withdrawn in some respects. Let's have a look at this replay here. Oh, now that's very sideways, and that's one of the ML Frey liveried Jaguars. That was the number 6. That was the number 66 Nissan that was involved. And that was Neil Kirkland, and that would have been Daniel Parker. So those two having a bit of it coming together, I think, at coming through Michelin, and then through into the right-hander at turn 11. That was the case, and yeah, that Jaguar was looking a little bit second-hand, unfortunately. Regan Mitchell coming under pressure through the Hagen by Riley, who's going around the outside in the number 2488 Ferrari, and Mitchell just nearly cuts the nose off the Ferrari quite quickly, but did it with enough space. There we go, on board inside the cockpit of the number 69 Mercedes AMG GT3. Down through Valvoline, the left-hander, and then into the right at Ford. And it's not exactly a straight, but it's as best as you can make it heading down the hill towards the double right hairpin here at Dunlop before you explode out of the corner. So second, third, fourth gear is going to probably hit around 190 kilometers an hour through there, which is about 120 miles per hour. It's accelerated out of that. Fifth gear up to Kumo. And then into the right just afterwards, as one of the cars goes a little bit wide there. Couldn't catch the number. I think that was the Lexus. Might have been one of the Lexuses there, and that might have been Smith in the 76 that has just gone. There's Gerard de Bar in the number 20 Audi. And that is in the Simsport duo, and he's got Jordi Bez alongside in the sister car in the number 100. They're running in the Absolute Racing squad colours as well. So let's have a look at this replay here. Looks like the McLaren has just been tagged from behind, and that is through the first part of the Hagen, and that was with the number 18, I think. Well, that's from what I could see from the overall. And that was Martins in the Raging Bull Audi, running in the Absolute Racing colours. And the bar is not being allowed to get away by Regan Mitchell. So Regan Mitchell is only 0.7 of a second away from the back bumper of the Audi. So go through Valvoline, through into the right at Ford, and then the short blast down to Dunlop. Let's have a look at this replay here. There's one of the Schnitzer cars, and that's the 26 Mercedes being turned around. So the number 26 is Joao Diaz in the RPM Racing Mercedes. And again, Mitchell has halved that gap. Right, here's another replay, I think. There's one of the Bentleys. Oh, now that was not what... That was Utley. And that was on one of the Audis. Now, that looked to be an Absolute Racing livery. There's Stephen Hady in the number 24. Yeah, so it was Gavin Utley in the 14 Bentley that took out the other driver. It was an Audi. Not too sure which one it was, but so we do have yellow flags out on the circuit. And they've just gone back in. So the gap between Archie Clifford Roberts, who leads this opening round out of 10, that will take place over the next 20 weeks for the Simsport Racing ACC Season 3, is leading from Chris Crossman in the number 3 Porsche by just 4.1 seconds. And then it's a further second back, the number 24 Audi of Stephen Haley. Right, here's another replay, and it's a Mercedes and an Aston, and that is the, let's just have a look at the number here, 98 BMW, and that was Paolo Tempera in the BMW Team Schnitzer colours. There's Rich Smith in the Tech 1 Racing livery for the Lexus RCF GT3. car that's being used by Jimmy Vassar's racing crew over in IMSA. It's a car you don't really see on the GT3 sort of radar nowadays. It was introduced back in the mid part of the second half of the 2010s, so it's a car that is very much, I think, underestimated, but it is still quite competitive. But then he's got Novakovic and Mitchell battling away over 9th and 10th place, and just up the road is Gerard Debar in the number 20. It's been pretty close here at the moment. We haven't really seen who is going to blink first. Air temperature, virtually speaking, is 19 degrees Celsius. Track temperature is at 26 degrees Celsius. There's Paolo Tempera in 25th place, and he's got the 111 Ferrari of Izailovic just behind. They're going through the rights at what was known as Warsteiner curve before they head to Advan. And that's going to be taken at around 220 kilometers an hour. That's about 140 miles an hour in 5th gear. And he's using as much runoff as he is allowed to under the track limit side of things. And all goes sideways through the NGK chicane. And he just lost it. I think he just went a bit... now he's just being clattered into. And he's been turned around. And as a result of that, Izailovic has gone into the barrier. And that was an Aston that closed pretty quickly. It's just... Oh, no, that was one of the Jaguars. So that would have been Dan Parker in the number 6. So Parker was able to get past them as a result of Tempera ending up on the middle of the corner. Izailovic with the front end in the barrier. And that Ferrari is not the prancing horse that it quite once was, and you can just see that he's wrestling with the steering on the onboard here. Adam Izailovic went in, I think, a bit too hot, but it was a bit of one and 500 of the other, because Tempera lost it. I think he went a bit too hot into the NGK chicane. So Izailovic dropping like a proverbial stone as he goes onto the runoff at the first corner. There's Daniel Parker in the Lost Jaguar Racing. Well, there's plenty of A's, so I'm wondering what the pronunciation of that's going to be. But at the moment, the fastest lap of the race is from Archie Clifford Roberts, but Chris Crossman in the number 3 Porsche from BD Racing is closing, and it's not that far behind. Let's have a look at this replay. So this is what happened. Izailovic went up the inside, clobbered into the side of Tempera, and then ended up hitting the barrier, the edge of the barrier, on the entrance to the pit lane. If anyone might remember that BMW M4 GT4 on, I think it was a VLN race last year that had the bonnet on the windscreen. And they went, yeah, just take it nice and slow. And the guy got back to the pits, but did not make it into the pit lane because the front end took a massive hit. That was definitely a moment I will never forget in endurance racing as long as I might live. So again, yeah, he just tags the back right of that BMW to Izailovic. And these things happen. You go for a gap, but we're fast approaching the completion of the first 30 minutes. For about 9.5 minutes of that. I haven't seen anyone blink to do their first of 2 mandatory pit stops. Quickest lap so far for Richard Bambridge is a 1:53.865 by our leader at the moment, the number 96 of Archie Clifford Roberts in the Ferrari 488 GT3. There are some improvements from Dave Hedges in 6th, Aaron Walker in 7th, Gerard Debar, Aaron Martin Pilkington down in 16th, Neil Kirkland in 25th. They have all improved on their lap times. Here's Steve Hindon in the number 40 Aston Martin Racing Vantage V8 GT3. A lot of the cars nowadays in GT3 machinery are normally turbocharged V8, probably around about a 4-litre displacement, and will be coupled with a 6-speed gearbox. Right, Novakovic has pitted from 16th position. Well, he might have been just ahead of Martin Pilkington at that point. Novakovic in the 357 Ferrari gets the initial decision to blink first. Now, for those wondering about pit stop strategies, that will depend on the driver, and that will also depend on the teams as well, because the teams, if they're running into 2 cars, they'll say, right, let's see what we can do on this strategy, what we can do on that strategy. So it's a bit of throw the dice, see what happens, considering the fact we have near on a 90% chance of this being a dry race all the way through. The sunshine is virtually beating down on the circuit at the minute. And there's João Diaz running in the Black Falcon colours in the number 26 Mercedes-Benz AMG GT3. And that's one of 2 RPM racing cars, the other one being the 69 of Regan Mitchell. And Regan at the moment is currently in P9, and he's just up ahead of the... Well, there's a Porsche that he's just got past, which looks to be the 52, which is Steve Proudley. But behind him, a little bit further adrift by about just over 1.7 seconds, that is Riley in the number 2 Ferrari. And that's one of the Tempesta Racing entries. The other one being James Hartnell in the 168. As Regan Mitchell trying to go toe-to-toe with Gerard de Bar. It goes towards the outside into the approach into the Haken. It's looking very close, but let's see if he gets the cutback on the Audi. He doesn't. He gets a good run coming out of turn number 2. Then into left at 3, and then they'll instantly have to switch momentum towards the right-hand side, go through turn 4, and then make their way down to Valvoline and then forward, which are turns 5 and 6. So Martin Pilkington in the pits, Hinden now in the pits. That's Steve Hinden in the number 40. And that is the Apex Racing Garage 59 liveried St. Martin Racing V8 Vantage GT3. So here's a replay. And that is the 27 Ferrari. And that was the car guy Ferrari I've just seen that went into the side of it as well. And that would be Roberto Santoro in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari 488 GT3. That's the team moniker he's gone under. So just over 65 minutes remaining in this first of 10 rounds. Over 20 weeks that will span over 8 different countries, 3 different continents. So the United States, Africa and Europe. We'll be heading to Germany, the UK, South Africa, Italy, Belgium, the USA, Spain and France. And France at Paul Ricard will be our last round. It will be a 2-hour extravaganza in Le Castellet. But if I'm completely honest here, Regan Mitchell is keeping Gerard de Bar very, very honest indeed. As we are on to lap number 14 of the race here at the Nurburgring. Mitchell is only just under 3.5 tenths behind de Bar in the 20 Audi. So no other drivers have yet decided to pit. Now, one of the other strategies you might look at from this perspective is that maybe some drivers will have brimmed the tank and gone long for the first stint, which means that when they pit for the first and the second mandatory pit stops, they will have to put less fuel in. They'll be able to switch on the tyres that little bit better. Here's another replay, and we've got the 626, and the number 40 gets clattered into by the 100. So that was Steve Hinden getting nigh on T-boned by Jordi Bez in the 100 Simsport Absolute Racing liveried Audi. And we're having another replay here. That is the 357, is that? And that was through going into, I think, Kumo. Yep, so thank you for that. That was Sreko Novakovic doing a great move up the inside there. Mitch, at the moment, still hasn't got an answer for Debar, and they both have not yet pitted. Reese Wiggin and Daniel Parker in the 667 and the 6 have all pitted just now. Clifford Roberts have pitted from the lead of the race. So Crossman inherits. Regan Mitchell now in. Hartnell now in. Aaron Walker now in. So we're now seeing the first barrage of where people are going to be in the pits. They've got to be on the pit speed limiter. Otherwise, they will get pinged for a drive-through. And they must change all 4 tyres. Here's another replay. That's the 626 Aston Martin, and that's the number 40. That's Martin Pilkington, and just behind them, they had the 135 Aston Martin, and that is Gianluca De Luca. Steve Hinden trying to close in on Aaron Martin Pilkington, who was running in the top 15 until his mandatory pit stop. Other drivers, Clifford Roberts has pitted, Hartnell, Roddenberry, Wardell, Regan Mitchell. Yep, so these drivers are now using the cogs will be turning in the brains of these drivers, because they'll have so much to deal with. So they'll be dealing with fuel mapping, traction control, ABS, all those kind of things, all the settings that they're able to control in the game on their simulators at home. We are racing from home, and I am commentating from home, which is why it's quite interesting to see how the race will carry on. Here's Steve Hinden again, and this is a great battle between 3 Aston Martins. As De Luca, looking up the inside of the number 40, goes towards the outside of turn 1, trying to get the switch back a little bit, but Hinden keeps it nice and clean. Martin Pilkington, in the meantime, is trying to pull away from the number 40. Hinden just is able to use Martin Pilkington a little bit as a yardstick, just to mitigate the circumstances. You know, if he goes, well, he's braking there, I'll brake a little bit earlier, or I'll brake a little bit later. So in some respects, you can pull you can get the toe here as well through Ford, which they're going through the right-hander. And the good thing is, if Hinden gets a good run, he's going to get a toe, courtesy of Martin Pilkington. Now, this is a battle for position. They have dropped De Luca quite considerably. As Dave Hedges, Gerard de Bar, looks like Santoro, Diaz, they've all pitted. Roddenberry's just put in a personal best after an outlap. And 1 lap onto new tyres. Stephen Haley rejoins in what will be 8th position, and that is behind Clifford Roberts and Jeffrey Wolf in one of the other vehicles. Looks to be the 86. Steve Hinden still trying to keep on close proximity to Martin Pilkington, who's got a Mercedes just up ahead, and who has just gone into the pits. So that, well, look who that might have been. That is Chris Bowman in the number 12. And that is in the Ram Racing colours. Usual drivers that frequent in that livery, as Hinden looks up the inside again of Martin Pilkington. And nearly gives him a bit of a love tap from behind, going through into the Hagen. Johnny Molam, also Tom Onslow Cole have been competing in those particular colours over the past couple of seasons or so. So Hinden now battling for what is effectively 21st position, I believe. As Novakovic in the 357 Ferrari sets his personal best of a 154.861. On to lap number 17 as Lucas Kakos in the Lamborghini. Number 13 has a lead over Mark Neutelings. And that's James Hartnell on the top left-hand corner. And he's battling away with Mark Raddenbury and has got the position going through into, I think that was the Schumacher S's, or was, no, that was, might have been the NGK chicane there. So it was a good anticipation there from Hartnell to get past Raddenbury. Hendon still not letting Martin Pilkington go without a fight. We are now into the second third of this opening race of the 10-week or the 10-race calendar. Next up will be Silverstone in 2 weeks' time on the 5th of July. A 2-hour race. And I can tell you now that there are still places on the grid available. So don't forget to register today before your luck runs out and you're not on the grid. So if you've got Assetto Corsa Competizione, you've got the relevant DLC content, come and join us here at the Simsport Racing ACC Season 3. Believe you me, you will not be disappointed when you have a 37-car grid on the opening round, which is set to blossom. We've had, I think, 6 reserve drivers in for this race with an initial pickup of 42 drivers, but 37 made it to the grid. As that is Paolo Tempera, that has just pitted from P13 in the Team Schnitzer BMW. Just looking up and down the list, that is the only BMW out of the 37 that we have got here on the circuit. There's Archie Clifford Roberts getting past the 66 of Kirkland there. He's got Chris Crossman trying to close him down. And this is for his 4th on the road. But let's not forget that Clifford Roberts and Crossman and Haley have made a pit stop. Kakos, Neutelings and Pinchbeck have not done so yet. And we have 56.5 minutes remaining here at the Nurburgring. One of the many configurations, obviously the Nordschleife, the Green Hell, has hosted the 1,000 kilometers of the Nurburgring. It's also hosted the ADAC Total 24 hours of the Nurburgring, amongst others, and also the World Touring Car Championship in recent times. There were some quite big incidents over there. I think Marcin Kwa was one of them. I think Ivan Müller, another. But then one of the best overtakes I think I've seen was on the Döttinger Höhe. Here's another replay, and there's the number 8 Porsche up the inside of the number 20 Audi. So that was Henry Wardell in the Wright Motorsport Porsche, going up the inside of the number 20 Audi. And that was De Bar in the Absolute Racing liveried Simbro Sport entry. Just behind them, they have got Rich Smith in the 76 Lexus. Yep, so as I was alluding to earlier, it's relevant in terms of the Nürburgring and the Nordschleife, even though we're racing in GT3 cars. But Rob Huff, one of the most successful drivers at the Circuito de Gaia in Macau, went pretty much, I think it was out of the toe on the Döttinger Höhe in a touring car. And it was, I think it was either 2 or 3 wide. I'd have to look back, but that was one heck of a manoeuvre from him. But he also likes getting behind the wheels of a GT car. Tom Coronel also will sometimes frequent in a Nissan GT3 Nismo at times. Most recently with KCMG last year. There's De Bar. There's Walker. Closing on Hedges in the 88 as they both hustle their way through the NGK chicane into the Coca-Cola curve. And that was very, very much a close to lick the stamp and send it by Aaron Walker on Dave Hedges. This is a battle on track for P7. We're just going to have a look at their lap times. Aaron Walker was just under 8/100ths of a second quicker than Dave Hedges on that last lap. A 1 minute 54.684 from Walker, a 1:54.765 from Hedges. So not much in it between the two Audis. So at the moment, out of the top 23 drivers, the first two, the number 13 Lamborghini of Lukas Kakos and Mark Neutelings in the 666 Bentley, have yet to make their first mandatory pit stop. We have a yellow flag out on circuit. It's just quickly disappeared. Yellow flag's out again, as both Walker and Hedges hustle their way through the Schumacher S's down into the left at Kumo. The gap between first and second at the moment is around 24.3 seconds. But when the pair at the front of the field actually decide to pit, then that is going to allow both Clifford Roberts and Chris Crossman to get back into their relevant positions. Nuno Martins in the number 18 Audi has yet to pit. There's Gianluca Di Luca in the 135 Aston Martin, running in the very bright part livery of the R Motorsport colours, run by Dr. Florian Kalmelger, based at Aston Martin St. Gallen in Switzerland, who were, up until last season, in the DTM with the likes of Paul de Resta, Dani Huncadea, Ferdinand von Habsburg, and also Jake Dennis. Had to think about that one. But they are all, as there's a Aston running wide on the Coca-Cola Coca-Cola curve there, who's just managed to keep that planted. And that might be the number, yeah, that's number 40 of Steve Hinden, that's just gone off the circuit. And one driver that has come out of the pits, that looks to be a set of Black Falcon colours. So Lukas Kakos in the number 13. That is in the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan Evo GT3. Now drops down to what is P6. So there is a bit of a four-way scrap between 16th to 19th at the minute, and that's between Martin Pilkington, Hinden, De Luca and Pinchbeck. So 626, the 40, the 135 and the 43. On board now in cockpit with Gianluca De Luca, going through Dunlop. Second gear, down all the way to first, as he now powers out of the corner. Second, third. Fourth gear, commits the Schumacher S's. Now up to fifth gear, braking down, going into second gear into Kumo. Up a further gear, drops it down again back to second to get the traction down on the rear wheels of the Aston Martin. Up to third, fourth. Fifth gear as he goes through Advan onto the apex. Now into the NGK chicane, braking from fifth gear down to third. Runs the curbs as much as he can and goes a little bit over the curbs into the concrete, down to second, through the final corner. Onto the start-finish straight, fourth, now fifth. And that last lap was a 1 minute 55.569. Aaron Walker and Dave Hedges still at it like a pack of, like a pair of wild cats. The gap between them is extended to just over half a second as they go through the Schumacher S's again. So here's a replay. And again, that is the numbers 8 Porsche, the number 20 Audi. So again, that will be Gerard de Bar in the number 20. And then that would be the number 8 of Henry Wardell. So Wardell up into 11th place. Here's another replay now. Here's the number 76 Lexus, and that's what... right. That explains a little bit more of the story, that the number 76 Lexus of Rich Smith gets a little bit of a touch and spin round from Gerard de Bar, who's currently in P12. Aaron Walker and Dave Hedges are just under 0.4 of a second apart. Here's Dean Riley. He's trying to get past the 626 of Aaron Martin Pilkington and runs wide coming out of the NGK chicane. And that allows both Hinden and it could be that De Luca gets to run on the Ferrari, but the pair are side by side down the start-finish straight here at the Nurburgring. This is the battle for what is 17th position, and Riley in the Tempesta Racing Ferrari is just ahead by a whisker. But De Luca's got the inside run, late brakes and goes up the inside. Oh, clatters into those two Aston Martins. It gets rear-ended by the number 2 of Riley. So De Luca, I just think, went for a gap that really he could have avoided doing. Because he had the run on Riley and then went charging in like a proverbial Brahma bull, hit the side of Hinden and then collected Martin Pilkington in the process. So just over 2 minutes away. Let's have a look at the replay here. Okay, De Luca goes up the inside into Hinden. The front collects the rear of Martin Pilkington. And then, all of a sudden, Riley in the number 2 Ferrari hits the Aston Martin from behind, squarely into the rear bumper. So those drivers have had their races quite literally compromised in just one fell swoop. Aaron Walker still trying to put one up on Dave Hedges. Now, will he sell him the old Nigel Mansell dummy at some point? It can be done in a sports car. Got a good toe going into the Hagen. Brakes a little bit deeper than Hedges, but Hedges has a really good run going through turn 1. Now into the left at 2, and then they'll take another left at 3, take them through the Mercedes arena. See how much closer Walker is to Hedges. Oh, Hedges makes a mistake, but keeps the inside run for the right at turn 4. See if Walker has a good run as we're onto the front bonnet cam here. Now, Walker's trying his best, but Hedges, even if he makes that little slight mistake, he's able to correct it quite quickly. And I've seen performances from Dave Hedges before as De Luca pits, and I think this is for the final time. Could he be doing a long stint, or has there been a penalty issued as a result of the contretemps between himself, Hinden, Martin Pilkington and Riley? You can just see how much more from this camera angle, how Dave Hedges is committing to certain corners very differently from Aaron Walker. And in endurance racing, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Don't forget, if you want to find out more about Simsport Racing, head to the website simsport-racing.com. There are still entries available for round 2 at Silverstone in just 2 weeks' time. So get in quick before the places fill up. So less than halfway to go. 44.5 minutes exactly remaining on the clock here. The opening race here in the Eifel regions. Been to the Nurburgring myself personally, just as a visitor, and just to see it from the BMW M-Power Tribuna, which you do actually have to pay to get into, but you think, oh, it's going to be great, it's going to be like a museum. No, you're actually over from the main garages on the start-finish straight, which is a fantastic sight. And if you're wondering where that is, where Rich Smith is, it will be to his left of the Lexus RCF GT3, currently running in P14 at the moment, and he's got Mark Neuterlings in the Team Parker Racing colours up ahead. He's under the Parker Racing banner. And just up ahead, they've got Gerard de Bar in the number 20 Audi. With 43 minutes and 30 seconds to go, Archie Clifford Roberts still leads in the number 96 Audi R8 LMS Evo, ahead of Chris Crossman. Stephen Haley in the number 24 Itotsuyama Audi is in third place, ahead of the 168 Tempesta Racing Ferrari 488 GT3 of James Hartnell. Then it is the number 13 Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo of Lucas Kakos. Dave Hedges in P6, we've been following for a little bit. He is in the 88 Audi, Team WRT colours, running under the requested name of a team of the editors. Then it is Aaron Walker in the number 99 Audi, running in the Itotsuyama colours as well, running in 7th, trying to get the better of Dave Hedges, but Hedges just seems to have his number every single opportunity. Then we have Sreko Novakovic in the 357 Ferrari, running under the Pistonheads team moniker, and is in the T2 Motorsports. And side by side now between Walker, who's got ahead, and he's made the move stick before Valvoline. And Hedges nearly goes up the back bumper as Walker breaks into Ford. So Walker had to bide his time over around about a period of about 10 minutes at the very least to get past Hedges up into P6. Gap between Clifford Roberts and the leader, well, the leader at the moment in the 96 Audi, ahead of the number 3 Porsche of Crossman, is 5.8 seconds. And Walker now getting a bit of daylight between himself and Hedges. The gap now up to 0.4 of a second. Neuterlings now in P13. He's being closed on by Rich Smith and number 76 Lexus. And then there's a further nigh on 8 seconds back to Riley in the number 2 Ferrari. It's Hinden, Pinchbeck, Santoro, Diaz and Wolf in the last part of the top 20. So Tabar being closed in on by the number 666 Bentley. And Smith fractionally behind. The trio are covered by just a second from front to rear bumpers on the Audi and the Lexus respectively. So it has been a final pit stop for Gianluca De Luca in the 135 Aston Martin, currently circulating in P24 as this trio makes their way through the NGK chicane. Right, De Bar goes into the pits, Neuterlings gets 12th place, and we'll have Rich Smith hounding him quite significantly if he's not careful. Pair separated by just over 5.5 of a second as we have 40 minutes on the clock remaining. Just up the road from Neuterlings, they've got Vidago in the Porsche. There's Izalovic, who had that coming together with the Team Schnitzer BMW of Dempera a bit earlier on in the race, and that has compromised his race. He's languishing down in P34 at the moment. They're still keeping the Ferrari out on circuit, doing his level best in the 111. Kirkland now in the pits. Martin Pilkington has done his final pit stop. Raddenbury has also done so. So some drivers that decided to pit later on with regards to the first set of pit stops have gone a bit longer in the stint. They'll have a bit of an advantage. They'll have a bit more pace in the car because depending on how much fuel you've got in the vehicle and how fresh your tyres are, De Bar will exit the pits in 23rd, maybe even 24th position if De Luca gets past him on the exit. And there is the sole Lamborghini of Koch that has just got past. So De Bar resumes his race in 23rd position. 38.5 minutes remaining on the clock. So Martins in the number 18, I've just noticed, has only made, well, hasn't really made a pit stop. No mandatory pit stop. So could it be two, respectively, very, very quickly indeed? So De Luca trying to close. Well, he's got a 26.8 second gap between himself and Wiggin in the McLaren. Wiggin is ahead of De Bar at the minute. De Luca's got some ground to make up at the moment. Flashing the headlights to get past the number 100 Audi. There's Rhys Wiggin in the Optimum Motorsport McLaren 720 SGT3. 2 on the grid. Nice to see the Ben Motorsport Park in Australia represented in terms of liveries. They'll be hosting some rounds of the Asian Le Mans Series next season, I think, and 2022. So Rhys Wiggin circulating in 22nd position. Makes his way through the NGK chicane, down into the Coca-Cola curve. Archie Clifford Roberts now has set the benchmark even higher for the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 53.583. 37 minutes on the clock remaining. And Wiggin puts in a 1 minute 58.395 on that lap. Best lap has been 2.3 seconds quicker. So De Bar, De Luca, Pilkington, Kirkland and Roddenberry, they've completed their 2 mandatory pit stops, indicated by the green section on the left-hand side of your screen at home. Yellow flags out briefly there. Neuteling's still out in 12th position. Closing on Kieran Vidago in the number 4 Porsche. That is for position, and that's for 11th place, and about 6.5 seconds up the road from the number 4 is the number 8 Porsche of Henry Wardell. So Rich Smith in the 76 Lexus, as does Steve Hinden in the 40 Aston Martin, now go in on lap number 28 of this race for their final pit stop. 2 mandatory pit stops for all drivers on the grid. It's also they have to change tyres. Just keeping an eye on who else has pitted. Nuno Martins has also pitted. There's Jeffrey Wolf in the 86 Car Guy Racing Ferrari 488 GT3. Currently running in 19th position, and has just got past the number 6 Jaguar of Daniel Parker there. Going through the Mercedes arena. Going to the right just afterwards for the blast down to Valvoline. And is that Diaz just up ahead? I think that might not be the case. It might be a back marker, I'm not too sure. Keep an eye out for that at the moment. But Jeffrey Wolf doing a good job in the very brightly coloured Ferrari 488 GT3 that I think that if you put Google Maps on it, you could see it from a satellite very convincingly. I think that is Diaz up ahead. Gap has closed. It was about close to a second. It's now half that. They go through the Schumacher S's. So at the moment, with regards to the pit stops, with 34.25 minutes left to go, the highest placed driver that I think that has now decided to do their secondary pit stop was actually Archie Clifford Roberts, who's just pitted. And I think Christopher Pinchbeck has also pitted. They've now served them 2 mandatory pit stops, including a tyre change. Depends on when Chris Crossman blinks, and then you've got to look at the likes of Stephen Haley, Lukas Kakosh, and then also James Hartnell, Aaron Walker. You can't really discount anybody that might be running in the top 10 at the minute for the eventual race victory, or maybe even a podium position. Right, let's have a look at the replay here. And that is one of the hits. That's the number 96 Audi that has just gone into the side of Mark Neutellings in the 666. There's Kakosh, who I think that is the number 2 of Riley just behind. So that was Clifford Roberts, actually, that went up the inside of Neutellings. But Neutellings has yet to make his secondary pit stop. A good drive here from Lukas Kakos in the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo. Running about 10.9 seconds behind Stephen Haley. Chris Crossman, in the meantime, has only got a gap of just over 4.4 tenths of a second between himself and Stephen Haley in the 24 Audi. So Kakosh has been running quite convincingly consistent by his lap times. Best lap time from the number 13 Lamborghini has been a 1 minute 54.609. The last lap around was a 1 minute 54.8. And just seeing that out of the top 5, only one driver. A little bit of a clatter into the side by Riley on Kakosh, and that was on the approach to the Schumacher S's, but Kakosh gets up ahead in the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. And there is a car just up the back bumper of Riley, and that is an Audi there. I'll keep an eye on what number that is just behind them. Just wondering whether that's one of the Hitotsuyama cars. And that is Walker at the number 99. Yep, just saw the first 3 initials. For those wondering, that you can actually see as that's actually Hartnell that was pitting. And just behind is Aaron Walker. So they are now serving their final pit stops with just over 31 minutes to go here. So Dave Hedges gets released in the 88 Audi. Now into P4. And he's only 2 seconds behind Lukas Kakos in the Lamborghini. And also, nice to see the South African flag on the wing end plates on this car. Because one of the drivers quite well known within South African racing circles is, and especially with Team WRT, is South Africa's very own Kelvin van der Linde. His younger brother Sheldon actually runs with BMW Motorsport in the soon-to-be restarting DTM season. Sheldon actually runs for BMW these days. Joao Diaz in 16th place has got both Jeffrey Wolf in the bright fluorescent yellow car guy Ferrari 488 GT3, and then you've got Paolo Tempera in the Team Schnitzer BMW M6 GT3, not too far behind. So this is the battle. That's a 3-way scrap over 16th position. And a little bit of time lost for Wolf. Tempera in the BMW in the slipstream of the Ferrari going down into the Haughaken. Tempera could get the run if he brakes late enough. As bit of outbraking there. Outbraked himself there, did Wolf, and that allowed Tempera to fly it up the inside, even though he went wide too. It's a change for 17th position, as we're now into the final third of the opening round of the Simsport Racing ACC Season 3 Championship here at the virtual Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit, with venues such as Silverstone, Misano, Kyalami, Monza, Zolder, Spa-Francorchamps, Laguna Seca, Barcelona, and Paul Ricard closing out the season in around 20 weeks' time. So Santoro in the 27 Ferrari now serves his final pit stop. Looks like Dan Parker in the number 6 Jaguar. The Emil Frey liveried one is also pitting. Kakosh has now pitted, and so has Regan Mitchell in the number 69 Mercedes-AMG GT3. Novakovic in the 357 Ferrari, now up into P5 at the moment. See how long it takes for, as Crossman and Haley also in the pits. So that now means, now that is Crossman out of the pits and being closely followed by an Audi of some description. So Clifford Roberts is in 9th position, and was that Vidago that I think he just got past? Keep an eye out for the race number. That is the case. So Clifford Roberts up into P8. There's Henry Wardell, currently running in P7, and he's 6 seconds or so up the road from Clifford Roberts. So Dean Riley hits for the final time, as does Tempera, in 14th and 17th position respectively. As behind Clifford Roberts, there was a bit of argy-bargy there. Now, I'm not too sure. Now, there was a Porsche involved, and that was Crossman, and I think he's made the move on both Haley and Vidago. Haley might have tried to go on Crossman. Crossman's got past Vidago in the process. So Vidago is behind Crossman, and also Haley, I believe that is behind Crossman at the minute. Which is the case. Vidago, let's not forget, has got to serve another mandatory pit stop, and he's got just under 27 minutes to do so. Dave Hedges now pits from what is provisionally the lead. So Novakovic in the 357 Ferrari will inherit the lead at the moment with around 26.5 minutes of this race remaining. But both he and Wardle still have a pit stop to serve, as does Vidago, as does Neutelings, Pinchbeck, Diaz and Wolf. They all have to serve pit stops, as that's very brazen from Haley in the 24 going around the outside of Chris Crossman into the Haughack. Trying to get the switchback on the number 3 Porsche, but can't get through. He's going to have some opportunities, though, coming up after the right at turn 4. They exit the Mercedes arena and go down to the short blast, down towards Valvoline and Ford Corner. They both power out. Let's see how much of a run that Haley gets on Chris Crossman. And he's doing the old flashing lights technique. Let's him know he's there. Because what Chris Crossman will probably be doing is saying, right, I'm going to look forward. I'm going to try and not get distracted. Vidago now pits. Diaz now pits. And even though he tried the flashing lights technique, did Stephen Haley on Chris Crossman, that has not worked. So we're on lap number 33 out of this 90-minute race with just over 25 minutes remaining. So out of the top 23 drivers, there are 7 that have yet. Well, there's 2 in the pits already. There's still another 5 to go. So we've got Jeffrey Wolf in the 86 car guy Ferrari 488 GT3. And we've got Neutelings in the Parker Racing 666 Bentley Continental GT3. Chris Pinchbeck in the number 43 Aston. And also Novakovic in the 357 Ferrari and Wardell. And there has been a stop-go penalty for the number 26, Joao Diaz, for speeding in the pit lane. So that is P15. He's going to have to serve that within 3 laps. On board now with James Hartnell in the Tempesta Racing 168 Ferrari 488 GT3. So 5th gear, up towards the braking zone for the Haughaken, down to 4th, 3rd, 2nd, down to 1st gear. All the way down, dropping it through the gearbox. Up to 2nd. Through into the Mercedes arena. Still in 2nd at the moment. Pulls 3rd. Down to second for turn 3. And it's going to be the same because they get a slight power out. It goes down to first gear in the 168 Ferrari with that fantastic Sky livery there. Lap number 34 of this race. You can just see how much now. Just wondering if one of the cars ahead, that was one of the Jaguars that I think went a bit wide coming out of Ford Curve and picked up a little bit of dust. There's someone else that's gone off track as well. So you can just see on the right hand side just the telemetry that we are getting from the number 99 Audi. And this is Aaron Walker. 5th gear, 140 miles an hour, dropping it down to second. The Aston up front is possibly a back marker, but just look who's behind. Dave Hedges back in the fray in the 88 Audi, and just behind them they've got James Hartnell. So this is going to be a really interesting battle over the next 22 or so minutes for the battle for 8th position. So Diaz looks to be in the pits again. The result of that stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Chris Bowman in the pits. Here's the battle for 3rd and 4th. So it is Stephen Haley in 4th position, battling away with our pole sitter for round 1, Chris Crossman in the number 3 Porsche. Novakovic yet to pit. Neitelings yet to pit. Pinchbeck yet to pit for the final time, according to you see on the top left. So we've got the main timing and obviously the gaps between them. Clifford Roberts will have around a 3-second gap between himself and Chris Crossman. So Crossman really needs to break the advantage that Haley could have on him. But whilst they're fighting, Clifford Roberts will be able to get away quite convincingly. And Haley now swarming all over the back bumper of Crossman. Out to Ford, down to Dunlop. And gets a bit more tentative on the brakes. Clips the apex a little bit more tighter than the number 3 Porsche. So he's about a car length and a half behind number 3 from EBM. In terms of their lap times, Stephen Haley was over 2.4 tenths of a second quicker than Chris Crossman on that last lap. 1 minute 54.183 from Stephen Haley, and 1 minute 54.420 from Crossman, as this battle is really waging on. The back marker really compromising. That was Walker being compromised, and the Hedges round the outside at Ford Curve, I believe. No, that wasn't. That was coming out of turn 11, heading towards Advance. So Hartnell on the back bumper of what is now Walker, as Hedges has taken advantage. Walker looks towards the inside of Hedges going through the Schumacher S's, and Hartnell, that was the NGK chicane, as now the Aston gets out of the way, and that has really compromised Aaron Walker, who's now got to fight back against Dave Hedges. Has got, that was so we got Chris Pinchbeck that was actually just up ahead. So Pinchbeck was in position, and I think he was saving fuel, not too sure, or whether that was just part of the strategy, because then that put the concertina on the likes of Walker and Hedges, and Hartnell is there waiting in the wings. He's waiting to pick up the scraps on the table, as Haley is still trying to chase down Chris Crossman. And their times have been very, very much respective of each other. A 1 minute 55.374 from Crossman. But Haley, because he's getting a little bit of a tow from the Porsche, so let's not forget it's turbocharged flat 6 engine in the rear of that car. There's Walker. He's the Hitotsuyama sandwich on the editors and also Tempesta Racing at this particular moment. He's got an Audi in front and a Ferrari behind. Let's have a look at a replay here. And there is Gerard de Bar, and then he's got Neitelings in the 666 Bentley just behind. Neitelings currently running in P6, but still hasn't served a final pit stop. Novakovic is trying to extend the gap over Clifford Roberts, who effectively become our de facto leader very, very shortly. As there we go, Novakovic pits on lap number 36 with 18 minutes and 50 to go on the clock. So he's left it as late as he dare. But one of the good things about Novakovic, if you look at the spread between first to third, it's effectively 4.1 seconds between Clifford Roberts, Crossman and Haley. And then you look at the gap between Crossman and Haley, it's 0.4 of a second. So the quicker that Novakovic comes out of the pits depends on how much he's going to have in the tank in that Ferrari. And I don't mean by fuel, I don't mean by the fact he's going to have, you know, he's going to have 4 brand new tyres on it. So the first lap or two, he's going to have to build the temperatures up and then go for it. One of the back markers getting out of the way. That looks to be one of the Porsches there. I think that's Vidago that they've just got past. He's running now in 23rd position. So Novakovic will drop, I think, probably towards the bottom part of the top 10. So by leaving that pit stop late, that's going to give him a heck of a lot of work to do. So Crossman effectively has now, through his strategy call, actually undercut Clifford Roberts, because Clifford Roberts actually got the initial advantage. Karkosh is 3.7 seconds behind the 96 Audi. Haley at the moment is only less than half of a second behind Crossman. So you can be guaranteed that in just our first out of 10 race evenings here on the Simsport Racing ACC Season 3 Championship, that it could go down to the wire. And whilst they are battling, let's not forget that there is pretty good pace in this Audi, as Knight Ellings pits from P6 for the final time. So that will be Mark's second and final mandatory pit stop here at the Nurburgring. So that means that Hedges and Walker will be embroiled in this battle for what is going to be P5. And for those wondering about the points for the respective races, for a race win, it will be 75 points for first, 66 for seconds, 57 for third, 51 for fourth, and 48 for fifth. So there is Crossman. And there is Wolf just behind him in the 86 car guy Ferrari 488 GT3. So in some respects, Chris Crossman has now got a little bit of daylight. Now it's either for one of two factors or possibly both, because Wolf is in the middle and Wolf is currently 21st. Yeah, now there is a distinctive gap. Wondering whether Haley has had a moment trying to get past Crossman and has been unsettled as a result of it. There is Haley, and I would imagine that's probably going to be at least over a 2.5 second gap. Crossman is going to have a bit of more breathing space as we go into the final 15 minutes on lap number 38 of the race. So there's Wolf. So here is the replay. There is Joseph Wolf. Just trying to get an understanding of what happened. So I'm wondering whether Wolf was involved and he got stuck between. So right, this looks to be the replay now. This is actually real time. Walker on Hedges. These two have been at loggerheads for quite a long time. And the gap is just over 5.5 tenths between them. Sun now starting to lower here, as you can see by the shadows of the cars and obviously by the tone of the colours in the sky. So the gap was around half a second. Times that by 7. And you have got the gap now, which is 3.505 seconds between Chris Crossman and Stephen Haley. And as a result of that, Clifford Roberts Now, the lap time last time around was a 1:56.196 for Chris Crossman, a 1:59.220. So there was obviously a drama there for the number 24 Audi that has meant that he has dropped back significantly. But in the meantime, Archie Clifford Roberts in the 96 Audi is only 2.5 seconds behind. And on that last lap, he did a 1:55.770. There's Daniel Parker in the Emil Frey Jaguar Racing XKR GT3. Wasn't really a work-supported entry from Jaguar themselves. The XKR. Supercharged engine on the road-going version. Very different animal when Emil Frey decided to get those onto the grid. It's a bit like the 2011 Aston Martin Vantage GTE car that raced in the WEC. You know, the classic silhouette, these big bruisers with these long noses on the front of them, and the swooping back line. So effectively, there's no you see the lift gates on it. So it's a front-engined, rear-driven car. Whereas you see cars like the Audi just up ahead, it's mid-engined, it's rear-wheel drive. Obviously, with the V10 Plus road-going model, it's with Quattro, but you can't have that in GT3 racing. Everyone has to be on the same derivative when it comes to traction. So Quattro from Audi has been banned in other championships beforehand, including the DTM after the early 1990s. It was actually legal, but then there was such a protest from the other manufacturers involved at that particular moment in time. So Mercedes, BMW would have protested against it, and effectively that was overturned. There is Dave Hedges. He's caught up with Lukasz Kakos in the last few moments, so he's only about 2 or 3 tenths behind the Lamborghini Huracan. Just up ahead, that is Paolo Tempera, running 22nd. The blue flags will wave to the number 98 Team Schnitzer BMW car as they go through Ford. And also, one of the other things regarding the point scoring is that the worst round in each series will be eligible to be the dropped round for each driver. So it will be the best out of 9 scores at the end of the 20-week season. 11 minutes remaining. And Kakos has extended a little bit of a gap. But considering the fact that the Huracan and the Audi R8 GT3 cars are very similar underneath, because let's not forget that Lamborghini is actually owned by Audi, which is in turn owned by Volkswagen, and it is the correct pronunciation. But now Tempera gets out of the way. That allows Hedges to close on the back bumper of Kakos. But in the meantime, the leaders are getting closer and closer together. It's about 5 seconds that separates first from third at this particular moment. Here we are on board with Dave Hedges, up to 4th gear, up to 5th, and he brakes from around 227 kilometers an hour going into Dunlop. Takes a tighter line on the apex than what Kakos does. And he's only just over 3.5 tenths behind the Lamborghini through the Schumacher S's. We'll change on the steering wheel there. So nearly 230 kilometers an hour down to 3rd gear and 120 on the Speedo. Going into Kumo. Left-hander at turn 10. Now they're going to go on the run to Advan. And he's committing to the corner, 5th gear. 230 kilometers an hour, and he gets up to 248 on the Speedo before the NGK chicane, down to 3rd, 150 through that. Now through the Coca-Cola curve, 9 minutes on the clock. Crossman still has the lead, but Haley is chipping away at it. It's now down to 1.8 seconds. And in the process, Haley has actually dropped the 96 Audi of Clifford Roberts. Hedges looking up the inside of Kakosh into the turn. And he makes it through. Kakosh on the cutback. Hedges runs wide. This is allowing Walker to come in. And Kakosh back into P4. Great try there from Dave Hedges. But I think he just outbraked himself a little bit going into the corner. But he's still looking rather menacing. But don't count out Aaron Walker. Walker is not that far behind. Unfortunately, James Hartnell is actually a little bit further away from this battle than he would actually like. He's about 3.1 seconds just behind. And then you look at Regan Mitchell in the number 69 AMG Mercedes. He's currently in P8. Wardell and Novakovic up into 9th and 10th respectively. So we've got a Porsche leading just by 1.4 seconds ahead of Stephen Haley. Number 24 Audi. It could be an Audi 2-3 if Clifford Roberts keeps in position, because he's now going to have an opportunity as we've got just over 7.5 minutes to go. But Kakosh will be battling away with both Hedges and Walker. Look at the gaps between them. 0.425 between Kakosh and Hedges. Walker is going to be closer. He's actually half a car length, or a car and a half behind Hedges through Advan, and he sneakily looks to the side of the NGK chicane. He's letting Hedges know he's there. The gap went down to 1/10 and a half. Now, if Walker gets a really good run coming out of the Coca-Cola curve, he's not got it this time. He really, really needs to get up close. And Wardell is actually close on the back bumper of Novakovic in the dying moments of this race. 6 minutes and 50 to go. Here is Chris Crossman down on the bottom right of your screen. He's got a gap of less than a second. Stephen Haley is reeling the Porsche in. So we've got a great battle for first and second. We've now got a fantastic one really imploding between fourth, fifth and sixth. This will be effectively best of the rest. So Crossman has, and now onto lap number 43 of this race. A little bit of a hesitation there from Stephen Haley. That looks to be coming through Dunlop. Now into what's going to be the Schumacher S's. Turns 8 and 9. Good commitment from Crossman. And Haley has a little bit of a moment, I think, probably through the first part of it. Through in Sakumo. Haley a little bit better on the braking there. A little bit closer. As Jeffrey Wolf is ahead of the battle between Kakosh and Hedges. They are starting to drop Walker. Hedges is about 2 to 3 car lengths behind the Lamborghini as they are heading down through Advan, sweeping around the outside of the Ferrari. Hedges looking really, really menacing on the back bumper of the Huracan. Kakosh has to watch it for around the next 5.5 minutes. So lap number 44. Just over 5 minutes and 10 seconds to go. And Haley has got the gap down to around 4.5 tenths. He's run on the back bumper of Crossman through the first corner. Crossman in that Porsche, because the engine is on the rear axle of that car, it gets incredible traction. Whereas the Audi, the placement is a little bit more centralized. So the center of gravity for the Porsche is going to be that little bit lower than the Audi. But in terms of the handling through the corners, the Porsche and the Audi are pretty even Steven. Again, Haley gets close on the brakes through down the Ford curve into Dunlop. Hedges still not that far away from Kakosh. Gap now is about half a second. They're now Kakosh has got backmarker traffic ahead of him. Now it's going to do one of two things. Help or hinder, as we've had a stop go for Steve Hinden. I'm wondering whether that was a stop-go for speeding in the pit lane, or possibly track limits, maybe, because the pit stops were done quite a while ago. Gap between first and second now down to just under 0.37 of a second. Real good run here by Haley to close what was. He's actually shaved 3 seconds, 3.2 seconds off of that moment he had earlier on, and now Crossman is feeling the heat. And as they say, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Here's Archie Clifford-Roberts. Here's Stephen Haley. He's 0.27 behind. And we cross the line with just around 3 minutes and 25 to go. He's going around the outside of Crossman. Trying to get the cutback, Kenny? No. No, he went towards the outside, tried to see if the cutback would work, but I think he just went in a bit too hot into that corner. But he's really got the traction back on the car. Now, whether Crossman's tyres are starting to drop a little bit, and Haley in the Audi could be benefiting from these colder conditions. So if we're running at 1:55, so we cross the line with around 3 minutes and 25 to go. This is the penultimate lap, according to my estimation. And how quickly has that 90 minutes gone by, as the red sky at night, Shepherd's Delight, as they say in the UK, is well and truly surrounding the Nurburgring here in the Eifel regions of Germany. Stephen Haley from Audi team Hitotsuyama has been putting on a recovery drive to try and see in the next lap and a bit if he can get past Chris Crossman. So the headlights ablaze as the sunlight quite clearly fading very rapidly here. For those wondering about how quickly we have sped things up, it's time. The time is actually sped up by the factor of 4. So local time around 7:26 p.m. They're going through to the NGK chicane. Now onto the back left rear quarter of Crossman. You can just see how hard Haley's pushing. Kakosh has got a bit more run and a bit more daylight between himself and Hedges. Gap now over 7.5 tenths of a second. As far as I'm aware, we are now on the 46th and final lap here. The opening round out of 10 for the Simsport Racing ACC Season 3 here at the Nurburgring. And the gap between the two leaders as they cross the start-finish line for the penultimate time would be just under 0.4 of a second. And Haley is not giving up. They come out of the Mercedes arena, and Haley's got a good run on Crossman. But Crossman seems to get that power out better as they get past the back marker there on the run down towards Valvoline and Ford. And Haley has really been able to use the toe to his advantage. And I think probably by the time we get to Kumo, the time will have expired. But Haley is fast running out of time to get one up on Chris Crossman in what has been an interesting dynamic. The gap now 0.3 of a second up towards the Schumacher S's for the final time, it looks like. So full commitment from the two leaders into Kumo. That's going to be round about the NGK chicane when the timer expires and we go to 0 on the clock. So that is it. The time is up. The time has gone to red. We are out of time here. They go through Advan. Now the rundown to the NGK chicane. Haley trying to force a mistake from Crossman. Is it going to happen? I don't think so, because Chris Crossman from EBM, the number 3 Porsche, who even though Haley was on his back bumper, comes round the final corner. And this time to open the winning account here is Chris Crossman in the number 3 Porsche by 0.4 of a second ahead of Stephen Haley. Clifford Roberts a further 1.1 seconds adrift in third place in the 96 Audi. Lukasz Karkos would fend off Dave Hedges by just 0.3 of a second at the end of the race to take P4. Aaron Walker in 6th place James Hartnell in 7th. Regan Mitchell, Sreko Novakovic and Henry Wardle rounding out the top 10 ahead of Smith, Riley, Pinchbeck, Neutelings, De Luca, Santoro, De Bar, Proudly, Martin Pilkington, Wolf rounding out the top 20. As it's going to be donuts galore, I hope. Let's just see. Is he going to light up the rear tyres? He finished. Well, he finished. I think he got some donuts out of sight there from us. Regan Mitchell. Is Chris Pinchbeck in 13th position. Good run from the 43 Aston Martin. We will speak to our top 3 before we end the broadcast here on the relevant channels, both on Twitch, YouTube and also Facebook. So Riley takes 12th, 13th for Pinchbeck. Neutelings will take 14th ahead of De Luca, Santoro, De Bar, Proudly, Martin Pilkington, and it looks like Viadog is in the side of some other car, possibly a McLaren, but what a race. Interesting dynamic all the way through, but there is only one winner for your opening round here at the Nurburgring, and it is Chris Crossman. We'll also have with us, hopefully, in the interview very shortly, we will have Stephen Haley and also Archie Clifford Roberts joining myself they're in the podium waiting room at the moment. So I think probably without further ado, let's get to our race winner. First race out of 10. Let's see if we can speak with Chris Crossman. Congratulations on your race victory here at the Nurburgring, also taking pole position earlier on today. Stephen gave you something to think about today, didn't he?
Oh yeah, mate, that was an epic battle right till the end, and to be honest, I think I got quite lucky because I was kind of holding Stephen up a bit. I could see him catching me back up, so yeah, I think I got a bit lucky in the end, but it was a great battle from start to finish.
Talk to you about the start very, very briefly. Obviously, our third place driver, Archie, actually got the jump on you going to the start. Did the car just sort of bog down, or did he just time it right to send it up the inside on the very first corner?
Well, yeah, I think he did time it perfect, but I did get a bit of a dodgy start. I actually tried to jump down, change the Discord channel, and got a little bit lost. So I was actually trying to get back into Discord as we were coming back to the start-finish line, so I wasn't quite on my A game for it. But yeah, Archie got a great start, and once he was past me, he's that fast, I can't complain. I thought, right, I'll just try and keep up with him, but I don't know what happened to Archie, to be honest. I'll have to go back and have a look at the replay, because he was just getting away from me, and he was obviously involved with something. But yeah, when he got past me, mate, I was nothing I could really do about it, but he's a great guy, so I thought I'd just follow him.
Well, congratulations. You're now leading the championship with 75 points to your credit, heading into Silverstone in 2 weeks' time. You looking forward to that one?
Yeah, man, it's another track that I've been practicing a bit on the Porsche. A few of the guys have got a 12-hour race next weekend at Silverstone, so we've been practicing a bit on that. So I'm looking forward to round 2 as well. Hopefully I can pick up a few more points. I don't think I'll get a win. I was a bit lucky today, but I'd take top 5.
Congratulations, Chris, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time at Silverstone.
Thanks, buddy.
Now we speak to Stephen Haley. Stephen, another good race from yourself, running in the Hitotsuyama colours. Chris definitely had a very good defensive tactic, but you really closed up that gap in the latter stages from what was a moment. Now, I understand that Jeffrey Wolf was in front of you, but can you just tell us about what happened to, because you were chasing Chris, and I would have thought maybe in a couple of laps you would have caught him and passed him, but you had a gap of around 3.5 seconds, but you clawed that back to be 4/10 at the end of it, I believe.
Yeah. It was Paolo I had coming together with into turn 3, I think it was. Unfortunately, I thought the gap was there, but obviously it was closing quite rapidly. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, race pace was generally quite good. I did expect Archie and Chris to both romp off. To be fair, with pre-season testing, etc., was I weren't quite on their pace, but coming into the race, found that I had a good pace. Trying to catch Chris is one thing, but trying to pass him is another. Really good drive and an awesome race. Absolutely sweating buckets.
Always the case after a 90-minute encounter, but yeah, 66 points to your credit heading into Silverstone in a couple of weeks' time. We look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
No problem at all. Well, just waiting to see if we can speak to Archie, if he is around. Okay. Well, that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining myself, Alex Goldschmidt, your commentator for this evening here on the opening round of the Simsport Racing ACC Season 3. Join us in 2 weeks' time at the home of British Motorsport, Silverstone, where we have a 2-hour encounter where pretty much anything can happen. Thank you for watching.